Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here. How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, March 11th, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, to let you know that we are a news podcast. We do try to watch our language, however, words do fly most of the time. At the same time, guys, we do or things that might be shown, especially videos that we do show from various news outlets, may be slightly graphic for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. All right, so how do we start this wonderful weekend? It's a wonderful weekend because, number one, it's my birthday. Yay for the March and Pisces babies. So, enjoying that. But anyway, we might as well get through this because you guys heard me say on the Wednesday edition of this podcast that Republicans are not for the benefit of the American people, aside from the corporations and rich people. I also sat there and said that once they took the House, once they sworn in and took the House come this past January, that it was going to be a lot of BS and everything that they're doing. I am still standing on the fact that I'm being vindicated by one Marjorie Taylor Greene. What I mean by that is she and another representative will be touring the facility where the January 6th insurrectionists/terrorists are being held because she says, quote unquote, or I should say her office says, that they have been informed that some of these individuals are housed in atrocious and cramped conditions. They're in jail. That's it. The last time I checked, jail isn't meant to be this exotic resort. Jail is one of the very few places that I think a lot of Americans don't want to be in. Oh, it's cramped, it's atrocious. Yeah, it's jail. But anyway, this is what I'm talking about when it comes to these Republicans, especially Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, guys, keep this in mind, that she had no congressional responsibilities when the Democrats had the slim majority. They actually got her to the point to where they removed her from her congressional duties, and she got paid for doing nothing. That's what a lot of people understand. This woman finessed the hell out of her constituents because she got paid for a full congressional term for doing nothing. And I mean nothing. And now her and another rep, Clay Higgins, along with Greene, are going to go out and go check on them because they say that, that their well-being's in danger, that they're not being fed and things of that nature. But let's be honest, it's jail. It's amazing how Marjorie Taylor Greene all of a sudden has a soft spot for these January 6th insurrectionists, considering the fact that she really, her and other conservatives who actually rode that train. Keep in mind, there's a lot of them that rode that train. Josh Hawley being the most famous one of them because he was the same one that gave the fist up sign when he was with that crowd. He's also the same one that ran like a track star when those very same people he was egging on were storming the Capitol. Now Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to go check on the well-being of this. And I'm just thinking to myself, how in the world does the ethics committee not do anything? And then I'm suddenly reminded, the ethics committee is ran by a majority of conservatives and some Democrats and one Speaker of the House, 15-time nominee, and it's only because it took 15 times to get him there, Kevin McCarthy. At this point, the Republicans cannot lose any more seats in the House. They can't. They're holding on to a majority. That's what lets me think that, Marjorie Taylor Greene will remain untouched. Even that one guy who faked his entire life, he faked it till he made it, and he did make it as a representative, George Santos. I don't think he'll be removed, even though the evidence there would state highly likely this man needs to go. But I digress. But this is what I mean by the fact that Republicans are not there to help anybody. They're there to point out, criticize, dismay, and disrupt, and that's it. Even more so, where as we move on to the next part of this, that Biden did come forth with a plan. And it seemed like a very good plan, but I'll explain why it still needs to be more.
Biden will be in Philadelphia today to unveil his proposed budget. He claims his plan will save $3 trillion over the next 10 years by raising taxes on the wealthy and large corporations. NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba joins us now with a closer look at exactly what's in his proposal. Good morning, Monica. So some details have already been released this week. What are some of the highlights Biden is expected to reveal today?
Hi there, Sinclair. That's right. And remember, any budget from any president of either party is really a little bit more of a wish list. This is going to be a sort of statement of priorities, things that the administration would like to do, but knowing that really in many ways, this is the start of negotiation points, especially given Republicans are already speaking out about some of the things the White House has put forward. So we saw the president pen that op-ed earlier in the week, extending Medicare for another couple of decades. That's a big part of it. But they also are going to really be consistent, they say, with one of the president's promises, which is not to raise taxes on anyone or any household making less than $400,000. But on anybody wealthier than that, that is a big part of this proposal. And essentially, they're going to try to cut the deficit by $3 trillion by raising taxes on corporations and the wealthiest Americans. The president's proposal likely will also include some other major initiatives when it comes to pre-K and childcare, and also something you saw the president talk about in his State of the Union earlier this year, capping insulin at $35 per month, which we already saw a company like Eli Lilly commit to do. So the president is hoping other companies will do the same. So again, it really ranges. It'll be spending amounts on a lot of different topics. But again, what you see put forward first here today in Philadelphia is very likely not the end product in Clay.
And Monica, as we're talking about budget, we got to talk about the debt ceiling. Does this plan address the looming debt ceiling deadline?
And that is one of the major questions. And of course, the urgent backdrop to all of this, because we know right now that if they don't raise America's ability to borrow, the U.S. could default for the first time ever come June. And that is why we had seen some of these extraordinary measures put in place by the Department of Treasury. And that's why you've had all of these warnings. So the president has been very clear in his position where he says this is not about negotiations. Republicans and Democrats need to come together, agree to lift it and move on. But exactly how they're going to do that is still a big open question. And that brings us to really this bitter battle between the two parties over almost everything right now on Capitol Hill. So when you're talking about a major budget, this is going to be a huge uphill climb as well.
And to that end, an uphill climb, how are Republicans reacting to the budget? Does it even have a chance of getting passed?
So we have seen for months now Republicans essentially saying the reason we don't want to lift the debt ceiling is because we feel like the president needs to rein in America's spending. And so, of course, now you have the president here saying, yes, we want to cut the deficit, but he wants to spend in other areas, he says, to make Americans' lives better. So this continues to be a place of huge opposition for Republicans. We haven't seen them to this point lay out their own budget proposal. They've said they're going to do that sometime this spring. And so that's where really you're going to get down to the nitty gritty of all of this. You're going to see the president lay out his in Philadelphia today, though, which is also a big point. The reason he's going there, I think, and you can say from White House officials, is because he wants to say this is not just about Washington, where this is ultimately going to be a huge fight in Congress. This is about reaching voters and Americans. And of course, he's going to go to a place where Pennsylvania is a critical state coming up in the 2024 election, ahead of what we likely expect will be his own reelection announcement sometime in the coming weeks as well, Sinclair.
Okay, so long story short, because Biden did want to go over a few things, which I'm not against. He did want to shore up Social Security. Okay, cool. He wants to expand daycare. Again, nothing wrong with that. Keeping Medicare and Medicare safe. Unclear on Social Security, that's a little bit of a problem. But it always comes back to the debt ceiling. Now, for all those who don't know, the debt ceiling, for those that may or may not know, the debt ceiling is basically where Congress gives itself its limit of how much it spends in every year. You guys have heard me say this multiple times over podcasts that they kept kicking the can down the road. 3 months, 6 months, short-term spending bills is what they actually put in place. Basically, band-aids on a gunshot wound. Doesn't really do anything. So, because again, we're in that area of where we're going to default again, which I find it interesting that only the times we ever get close to defaulting, the other one was first under President Obama. Now we're getting it under President Biden. And it seems to be that the same situation where you have an overabundance of Republicans who want to do nothing more than basically be the actual wall that one failure in chief wanted so long ago. So the reason why, well, there is no reason actually, but for Republicans, we kept on saying the whole entire time, what's the plan that they actually have in place for this kind of thing? What's the plan that you have if you don't want the Democrats to do spending? Well, this is actually what they said, that what they want to do, and this is only by the Freedom Caucus, which is actually a conservative group of representatives, sat there and said, well, we want to get rid of your $400 billion in student debt relief. What that basically is a student loan debt relief plan that could take anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 off student loans. They want to basically pull back COVID-19 funds. You know, the funds that were actually spent to actually help battle COVID-19 in several states. They also want to cut climate change funding and the $80 billion that was initially approved by the previous Congress for IRS enforcement under the Inflation Reduction Act. And they want to pull that back as well as capping discretionary spending at 2022 levels for nearly the next 10 years. Understand what that just said right now. Guys, understand what that is. They're basically saying in order to actually cut the deficit, let's cut the knees out from everybody, except corporations. Keep in mind, if you did nix that $400 billion that was set aside for student debt relief program, again, you have 20 plus million Americans who are still in the same financial straits because the predatory spending of college loans is still out there. I have said this once, I will say this again. It is amazing for student loans how they're allowed to operate. Why? A bank being let's just say 18 years old, just graduated, you want to start your own business, you go to the bank for a loan, you have all the proper documentation, you have all the proper analysis, follow-throughs, 5-year plans, senior plans, what have you. Let's say you've done your research, you've done your homework, and you're ready to pitch this to the loan officer at the bank, and they laugh you out of it. Keep in mind what I just said. 18 years old, you want to start your own business, you go to that bank for a loan, you do everything right, and the bank says no. That very same bank will turn around and give someone who may or may not have the financial know-how, literacy, or knowledge. And just because you sat there and said, oh, well, we want you to read everything that you're understanding, make sure that's all great, but you're telling this to an 18-year-old and saying, hey, we will give you $20, $30, $40, $50,000 and up. We'll give you a loan at this APR for this many years. Don't worry about it because you're going to get a great job and you'll be able to pay this back. You won't be stuck with it for life. That, my friends, is predatory. That is predatory lending at its finest, because there are plenty of people, I myself in that group, still pay on student loans and still wondering why our principal hasn't changed. There are people that have been paying on student loans 10 plus years, and somehow they still owe the same amount of money that was there when they first started. Again, predatory lending, and that $400 billion would have actually helped Americans. Now, should have Biden done more? Absolutely, but we've been down that road. But the unspent COVID-19 funds, which again, funds that were used to actually help battle COVID-19 when we have high pandemic levels in each states. Republicans want to pull that back. Don't understand why, when those funds can be allocated to use for the state or determined by the state to be determined by the state to be used for whatever needs based on priority. Now, here's the scary thing: cutting the climate change funding. This lets me know that conservatives hate the environment. Conservatives hate the environment. Conservatives would love to drill, especially in wildlife and habitat areas. They would love to allow dumping by corporations, especially for wastewater. They would love to wreck our environment. They still half of them didn't believe in climate change. Still don't, even though well over 95% of the scientific community believes that climate change is real. But again, they hate the environment. So what are we doing? We are going to basically go to the EPA and cut their budget and cut their legs out from under them. The same thing that they're asking the Supreme Court to do with the Consumer Financial Bureau, and give that power back to give those powers back to creditors and the Equifax TransUnion. Equifax TransUnion and Experian. Damn, that was kind of bad that I almost forgot all three. But that's what they want to do. And then the coup d'etat of it all. They want to take back the $80 billion because the lie they told about the $80 billion put to the IRS is that the IRS will hire more people to go after those who make less, but have them pay more in taxes. It's a lie. The IRS, for all intents and purposes, if you call them, try to get in touch with them, try to work with them, know they are woefully underpaid, overworked, and understaffed. That $80 billion would have actually done something that should have been done in the IRS a long time ago. Gave it funding to where it could work properly. Again, because Republicans ran this whole thing about the IRS coming after the everyday man says a lot. That's the thing that's the thing I keep saying. The fact that they're going after these things. And the other part of it all, that they didn't actually suggest anything except cutting programs. Note they didn't say, well, let's cut the military funding. Well, let's actually cut the areas of fat. Let's actually raise the taxes, raise taxes on the wealthy and on corporations. Let's actually adjust the corporate tax rate. My personal favorite was, why not remove the Trump tax breaks that were put in place that are still there? Why not remove them? Reset everything back to Obama level, where the corporate tax rate was 35% or higher, where we could instate a windfall profits tax on these oil companies who, again, made a huge profit at a time where crude oil fluctuates, but you had companies like BP and Exxon making buku bucks. Windfall profits tax would have been perfect in that situation. But again, they won't say it. They won't say anything because they can't go against those who basically feed their coffers in PACs for re-election. And keep in mind, everything is set up for re-election next year. This is, for the presidential election, I should say. Because Biden, he hasn't announced it, but let's be honest, he is going to run for re-election. And the Democrats, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a couple of challenges for the presidency because I don't think Biden's going to run unopposed. We already know, as we saw on Wednesday, that, of course, if somehow Trump makes it to next year unscathed, I'll be amazed. But if he does come to this year unscathed, best believe he will be running for office again. And there's also this other person, Nikki Haley, but that's not her real name. Well, she changed it because, conservatives can't stand a Pakistani woman. But anyway, Indian woman. I apologize. But they can't stand Nikki Haley. But because Nikki Haley is a conservative and a woman, which is kind of an oxymoron if you think about it, she already announced her presidency and has already sat there and said, as one of her presidential standing points, we are going to raise the retirement age. Why is it that it's always conservatives that want to push back dates on when you can retire and receive your Social Security? But don't believe me, listen to the idiot.
And we need to acknowledge entitlement. We need to acknowledge all of the entitlements that we have. It's an issue because you've got a situation that Social Security is going to go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare is going to go bankrupt in 5 years. You can do what Joe Biden's doing and hide your head in the sand, or as he loves to do, raise taxes. But that's the lazy way out. We need to fix it. How do we fix it? You reform the entitlements, but you do it in a way that you don't take anything away from seniors or people who are getting ready to retire. You focus on the new generation. You focus on what's next. So the first thing you do is you change the retirement age of the young people coming up so that we can try and have some sort of system for them. The second thing is you go and you limit the benefits for wealthy people. Many of them will tell you they don't even want it, but you limit the benefits for wealthy people. Then you go and you look at cost of living. Cost of living should actually be tied to actual inflation. That's something both Republicans and Democrats will agree on. We can get that done. And then when it comes to Medicare, you expand Medicare packages for Medicare Advantage. Make sure there's more competition. Make sure there's more choices. That will actually cut down on the cost when we look at that.
Thanks to you,
Rupert.
Ooh, that was loud. I I want to laugh. I want to laugh so much. I want to laugh so much because number one, she sat there. You noticed her wording had changed. Well, we're going to raise it because we're going to raise it for the people that are coming out of retirement. The retirement age currently, I mean, okay, let me try it this way. The retirement age for Social Security, they want to raise that from anywhere from 70 to 75 or close to 80. They don't really have a set number because right now the retirement age is around 65. But ask any senior citizen right now, retirement is questionable at best. Why? Because Republicans have made it difficult, and some Democrats have made it difficult. They've made it difficult for older citizens to retire. So it's amazing now. And the first thing she sits there and says, typical conservative thing, oh, Social Security is going to run out. Since Social Security is going to run out in 10 years. No, it's not. It's not. That is the lie. That is a bold-faced lie conservatives say all the time. Well, if we leave Social Security on its own devices, it's going to run out of money. It's not. Social Security is actually one of the most self-sustaining programs that actually is in the U.S. It's not going to run out of money. It isn't. At the same time, she said, well, Medicare is going to run out in 5 years. No, that's not true either. Again, self-sustaining. Now, the thing about that is, the reason why, and I have to kind of blame this is kind of blamed on baby boomers, because baby boomers did actually have the greatest economy when they came out. The problem is that they basically took something that was a great vehicle and wrecked it. Because at the time, you could retire at 50, 55 and be fine. But because we didn't do some things here, we didn't raise the minimum wage. We did not, as far as wages staggering, we did not include booming economies. Those economies went actually overseas to areas where there was low cost in manufacturing, and we went from importing to exporting. So along with that and many other factors, it's the reason why, especially also keep in mind, we didn't have Medicare. We had Social Security, but we didn't have Medicare and Medicaid, especially the Part D until 2001. Unfortunately, under Bush 2.0, if you will. But the thing about that is, they kept kicking the can down the road, because this wasn't the first time that they tried to get some sort of socialized medicine. And yes, I said socialized. That you got to think, it was first mentioned to President Obama. They tried it. Clinton tried it. Bush ignored it. And it wasn't until Obama's second term that they finally got Obamacare in, and the Affordable Care Act, which again guarantees people to get care regardless of their afflictions or pre-existing conditions, things of that nature. So because we got that in, and we forget that healthcare in the U.S. is a for-profit business. And again, that's the problem. For-profit businesses, when you have some of the major health insurance companies out there and health and hospital systems out there that basically can lobby Congress to do whatever they want, that it again snowballed. It snowballed into the problem that we currently have right now. So what do they praise? What's Nikki Haley's idea? Basically taking from younger Peter to pay older Paul. that yes, we want to go ahead and give the people that are coming there that are retired or coming out of retirement, we want to make sure they get their benefits. But for young people, we'll have something for them. We will have something for them. Nothing says we don't have a plan for y'all like we will have something for them. I cannot make that up. But again, I'm not surprised. And then she turns around and wants to blame Biden and says, well, he's got his head in the sand. No, actually, the Democrats have produced a bill. What she doesn't say about her own party is that they've said no to everything. Anything that's a Democratic plan, Republicans have said no, except their own plans, which again, few far in between that they do talk about those things. That is why it's not surprising. It really is not surprising that, of course, she's speaking to a crowd of her constituents, so she's going to give all the greatest hits. But this is the reason why I keep saying this is why, as much as I sit there and say I'm not a Democrat, I may vote Democrat, but I'm progressive. But I can't see myself as conservative because conservatives will sit there and tell you the conservatives are like a good side piece. They will tell you everything they want to know, but they will never want to take the main position. Why? Because whatever they say, they'll have to do, and they know they can't do it. Just saying. But again, that's a Republican candidate. More are going to come out. Moving right along, guys. I hate to say this, but unfortunately, my home state of Tennessee is back in the crosshairs again. I mean, we just submitted a bill that basically prevents drag queen performances from happening. Although they say it's protecting children, but the last time I checked, anytime a woman was dressed provocatively or sexually that had minors around, usually was Titans games, Hooters, and Twin Peaks. Just saying. But in this case, the marriage law, a new bill had passed because apparently there are some religious people who don't want to solemnize marriages. Yes, I said solemnize. I'll explain in a minute.
Passed the state house that would allow anyone who solemnizes marriage to refuse to do it. County clerks and officiants can refuse to perform a ceremony if the marriage conflicts with their personal beliefs. Critics say it is another legislative swipe at same-sex and interracial marriage. Supporters say the change only ensures people can't be forced into solemnizing a marriage. Now, we spoke to a law professor who says there's nothing textually discriminatory, but people could use it to deny certain other people marriages. And that expert says we could see legal challenges if a state employee, like a county clerk, refuses to solemnize a marriage.
In that situation, in that limited situation, it could be the case. Someone could say that that's a denial of equal protection and due process that violates the federal Constitution's 14th Amendment.
The bill did pass the House 74-22. It must now pass the Senate before going to the governor for his signature. A Senate Judiciary Committee will hear discussion.
Crazy, isn't it? And I love how they sit there and say, well, this sets up a precedent to where clerks could turn around and deny this. It's you know what the thing about it is that killed me was that the moment he sat there and said county clerks can deny marriages, because again, solemnizing means that officiating or being over it. That's all I want to say, because I know a lot of people out there like me, if you got the same mindset I do, it's like, wait a second, did you say solemnize? Because it's too close to the other thing. Just saying. But with county clerks, though, keep in mind, we had that situation literally a year ago. Remember this woman? Kim Davis. Kim Davis is a former county clerk in Kentucky who refused to sign the marriage certificate of a gay couple because she believed it violated her personal beliefs. This is why Tennessee is progressively backwards, because the situation, keep in mind what I just said, the situation in Tennessee right now is that bill could go to Governor Bill Lee's desk, and that for the simple fact of the matter, he could sign it. And if he could sign it, that means county clerks in Tennessee will be empowered to do what Kim Davis did. Kim Davis basically sat there and said, you know what? I don't believe in gay marriage, so I'm not going to sign it. And you saw the publicity, you saw the notoriety that she received. At the end of the day, she was found wrong and was thankfully let go. Here in Tennessee, a year later, we're about to make it legal for county clerks to do that. And that is a scary thought. But you know what else is a scary thought is conservatives? I do believe for not a lot of you conservatives, but I do believe for a certain percentage of y'all are closet members of the LGBTQ plus community. And not to knock the LGBT plus community, I consider myself an ally with them. I will always fight for your rights and things of that nature. But there are some conservatives, because conservatives, again, why is the only reason that a bill is out there to prevent drag queen performances? Because again, Republicans want to use this whole thing of protecting children, and yet I haven't seen one person of faith who violated children actually wind up in court. Sit on that one for a second. But it amazes me so that these Republicans are literally closet members. And the reason why I say this, that in Tennessee again, this lieutenant governor, as you can see there, that's Governor Randy McNally, who decided to go on to a young gay man's Instagram photos and put out some questionable, flirtatious, I'll say flirtatious comments, if you will. Now, this is also the same person who's the Speaker of the House in Tennessee, and they just went over bills that basically harms or hinders those the LGBT plus community. I've said it once, I will say it again. Anytime, and again, I'm not knocking that man. If he wants to comment on another man's social media, that's his business. But when you are voting on things that harm that man's way of life, sir, I don't know if it's self-hatred. I don't know if it's repressed sexuality. It could be one of many things. But I've always sat there and said this. For those Republicans who will sit there and use religion, use children as a shield to basically hinder or banish or try to stop the well-being of those the LGBT plus community, look further. You'll find a scandal, a lover, embarrassing pictures, dress and drag, or my personal favorite, all the above. Now, we already found that with Bill Lee. Someone found a picture of Bill Lee in a dress when he was in school, and it's amazing to me that he is playing that off. Oh, come on, that was in school. You still a man in a dress, sir. The same man, and it's amazing that a man in a dress in high school, many years later, wants to deny another man in a dress, simply put, because he wore it better. I find that amazing. But again, when it comes to Republicans, that's all I'm saying. It always ends that same way. But we do got some positive news on this wonderful Saturday. That thank goodness Michigan did something that I wish a lot of states would do, because Michigan actually had an abortion ban since 1931. That the Michigan House and Senate just passed that bill to repeal it, because the bill is sort by state judges declared unconstitutional. And it had to, I mean, think about this. There was an abortion ban in Michigan since 1931. It was just now repealed, which again, that was one of Governor Gretchen Whitmer's points to do when she became governor. And again, I think that's great. Now, again, I am definitely pro-choice because I can't have babies. I can't have babies. I can help make them. But I can't have children. But I've always sat there and said this. And the thing that a lot of those pro-life, really they're pro-birth, but though pro-life folks, I've always sat there and said this, and they can't stand it. The fact that you hate what a woman can do with her own body is the sole reason why you are full of this hatred. The fact that just say you don't respect a woman enough to make decisions about her own body, and because you think you know better, you want to step in and you want to do what you believe is right. That's all I want them to admit. They'll never admit it though. Oh, but it's the life of the child, the voice of the unborn. Okay, if you're pro-life, why do we still have orphanage? Pro-life, why aren't you there at every school shooting? If you're pro-life, why aren't you advocating? Why aren't you, doing the protests for violence in the streets? for black men being killed by police. If you're pro-life, why are you only there when it's a pregnant woman just because you believe that you know better than her about her own body? But that's always been the thing with them. Oh, well, it's killing a child. Yes, it's terminating pregnancy. You want to humanize it. Look, until you get to a certain point to where it's sentient, it is an embryo. It is an egg. And whatever a woman decides to do with that egg is her business and her business alone. I sleep good at night either way. But I think it's time we finally admit that. And Michigan actually did, and actually repealed something that's almost been in place for nearly 100 years. But kudos to them to actually doing what a lot of states should be doing, except, outside of Tennessee putting their own ban on abortion. But again, I digress. This story itself, guys, we're going to go over is a little weird, but it also comes with a tale of caution because I've never understood. Don't get me wrong. I know it's been a while since I had a vacation. I can't wait to actually have another vacation. But this is a story of caution. And I say that because when you're traveling outside the U.S., only because we've been in an area that's not as active as other countries, we get lulled into a false sense of security. And unfortunately, the story I'm about to tell is not only very tragic, but it is a cautionary tale when traveling outside the States.
Mexico, here we come.
This is video inside the minivan heading to Mexico before 4 Americans were kidnapped. It was originally live streamed on Facebook. A law enforcement source familiar with the matter tells NBC News a previously unreported fifth person made the road trip, but left the group before the others crossed the border because that person did not have the proper documentation. We're blurring her face since she has not been publicly identified. Latavia Washington McGee, a mother of 6, was among the Americans captured Friday when authorities say cartel gunmen opened fire on the minivan after they crossed into Mexico for a medical procedure. McGee's cousin, Shaid Woodard, and close friend Zindel Brown were killed. McGee's mother speaking to CNN today.
She watched them die.
Another member of the group, Eric Williams, was shot in the leg and is now recovering.
Did you have any idea that he would make such a trip like this?
I was totally shocked. I had no idea he would go to Mexico.
Robert Williams is his older brother. He watched the images of the 2 American survivors being brought back across the border on television.
I was overwhelmed with emotion. I was very happy to find out he was okay. I was totally relieved.
We're also learning new details about the chilling abduction. Pictures released by Mexican authorities show the gunman trailing the white minivan. More images show travel documents, luggage, debit cards, and cash investigators found inside the vehicle. Over a tense few days, investigators scrambled to several different hospitals in the area to find the victims, discovering them in this wooden shack some 15 miles from Matamoros. Police arrested this man accused of guarding the Americans, but are still searching for the gunman. Today, hundreds of extra troops from the Mexican Army and National Guard arrived in Matamoros to ramp up security.
Authorities continue to say that the group of Americans was mistakenly targeted by cartel gunmen, but news of a 5th person on the road trip point to a complex investigation that is only widening.
And I say this because that is a cautionary tale. From what we were told, these individuals were traveling for surgery in Mexico, and that unfortunately, this is what happens. We go, and especially, and I say this with caution. And I say this with caution and concern. You got to be careful wherever you go. Understand where you're traveling to. Do your research. Definitely check up on situations. Check with the State Department, because usually the State Department will have a travel advisory list of countries where you may not be safe in. And again, even though they were mistaken, that's just the first part of this story. The second part is it's unusual, but I'd never thought at 40 years old I'd be saying this.
The stunning photos show 5 men laying on the pavement, each with hands tied and all but one shirtless, with a handwritten letter claiming to be from Mexico's Gulf Cartel stuck to the windshield. A bizarre scene that tonight a senior law enforcement official tells NBC News appears to be an apology from the cartel following the kidnapping that left 2 Americans dead. The shocking admission almost unprecedented.
Have you seen a PR
situation like this?
No, I have not. They made a huge mistake. They killed 2 Americans, and they know that the Mexican government going after them. They know that we're going to go after them as well.
The letter, obtained by the Associated Press from a Mexican official, includes apologies to the people of Matamoros, the Mexican woman who was killed, and the families of the Americans. It reads in part, the Gulf Cartel Scorpion Group strongly condemns the events of Friday, March 3rd. For this reason, we have decided to hand over those involved, adding the men acted under their own determination and undisciplined and against the rules in which the cartel has always operated. Mexican authorities have not confirmed if the men are in custody or if they're truly responsible. Meanwhile, in Texas, as officials work to get 2 slain Americans back home, survivor Eric James Williams is recovering. His wife sharing doctors placed metal rods in his leg, wounded in the hail of gunfire. Tonight, the cartel ending their letter, asking society to remain calm, closing with the guilty parties will pay, regardless of who they are.
Morgan, what more can you tell us about the condition and the status of the American victims?
Lester, we know this process to repatriate or recover those 2 Americans have been ongoing for several days now. And just in the last few minutes, our crew witnessed this solemn procession, multiple vehicles crossing this international bridge from Mexico back onto U.S. soil, carrying those 2 Americans. We're told they're headed to a local funeral home and future arrangements are expected.
And again, this is a cautionary tale. But like I said, the reason why I said I never thought I'd see this, to actually hear and allegedly, that a Mexican cartel has apologized and sat there and said, look, we didn't give the okay on this. We didn't give the green light on this. Here's these 5 individuals that act on their own. Do with them what you will. Now, they could be just 5 individuals. It could be the 5 that started all this. It could be a multitude of things. But never did I ever think, with all the mess that goes down in Mexico, that you actually get a cartel apology letter, which sounds like an HR letter if you want to be honest about it. But wow. But again, for especially Black people, my people, be safe, be aware, be preventative. Just because Mexico, I mean, I'm not saying Mexico ain't safe, but technically anywhere you go ain't safe. But be aware. Go to the State Department, check the travel warnings, watch yourself. Because, like I said, going, and again, this is a letter. I mean, this is not confirmed that those individuals may have been going there for surgery off of Mexico, which could lead to a whole other thing about exploratory surgery in the U.S. But that's a whole other conversation. But definitely feel for those that were slain, and actually feel for those that survived, because again, that's gonna be something I have to work through. But again, the entire thing about all this is to honestly be safe. Be as safe as humanly possible. But again, never thought I'd hear a cartel apologizing about something they did. But I'm switching gears for a second, guys. There's a new documentary that's coming out. One of them by my favorite actors and authors, but it does shine a light on the educational system in the U.S. And the simple fact of the matter is, we see this problem of literacy in children, and it just seems to be getting worse, but it looks like they're trying to do something about it.
Yeah. A new documentary laser focused on a growing problem in America, what it calls an early reading crisis.
When I first started teaching in Oakland, there were only 2 kids in my class of 35 who could read.
In 2022, 66% of fourth graders in this country were below proficient in reading. That's according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress. 37% were below a basic reading level.
We are in a scary place for most of our kids.
LeVar Burton is an executive producer on the film. He's spent most of his life as an advocate for literacy, dating back to his time as host of PBS's Reading Rainbow for more than 20 years. Burton says this documentary speaks to an urgent need.
Kareem has been a teacher at all levels, principal on down. And he says in the documentary, imagine being in the Stone Age and you don't have any stone. Imagine being in the Bronze Age and you have no access to bronze. We're in the information age, and our kids aren't getting access to the information because they can't read.
Burton says that while the film shines a light on the problem, it also elevates what he sees as a solution.
We were asking kids to memorize words and take their cues from the pictures as to what the words on the page mean. We now know that that doesn't work. The problem, as the experts see it, is that we've been spending money in the wrong direction, right? And we can change that. What you need is the phonics. You need a really scientifically based approach to reading instruction.
Burton says the right to read explains how a turn towards structured, science-based reading tactics is creating better outcomes for children, and he encourages parents to ask questions about what's happening in their children's classrooms.
Parents can ask their school board. They can ask their child's teacher, how are you teaching my child to read? Are you using evidence-based curricula or not? Because if they're not, then there's a problem. And once you identify the problem, only then can you address it to fix.
Which he's right. Mr. LeVar Burton is right. But that leads actually into a bigger issue. And I love it. He said, what ways are they teaching these kids to read? And you all know, we've been through public school, or you've been through public or private school or charter school. There were certain techniques on how you were taught how to read. I know for myself, I was very lucky. I had parents that made sure that helped me to read, that challenged me on reading books, and again, lit my fire as far as reading books up until now, and expanded into different other genres and mangas and comics, things of that nature. But we've seen in the most recent months that education is under attack. Teachers are being held off of what they can and can't teach because there's parents out there that think they know better, who have never taught a class, who have never gotten a degree in education, who've never actually created a curriculum, but still think they know better than those that do. So yes, reading has suffered because, again, you can't blame technology. Has technology made it easier to teach children how to read? Yes. But the techniques, as far as, not just the teachers, but the parents as well, that's faltered. But again, that goes into a whole bunch of other elements besides the idea. But yes, reading has faltered. The fact that you have kids who are possibly in the 7th and 8th grade level can barely read at a 3rd grade level. And it's terrible. It's a warning sign. But I truly do believe that, if you do go back and actually look or go to educators or behavioral therapists or those that are more inclined to give an expert opinion on how to help these kids learn how to read, then we can do from there. But it goes back to what I've always said. Education needs an overhaul. If we could overhaul education and actually teach these kids the right way, imagine just for 1 second how everything would change. But it always comes back to that. How are we treating education? Are we actually trying to put more into it, or are we trying to find ways to take away from it? But again, hold on discussion. A couple more articles before we get to our feel good segment, guys. This one, I find this one bizarre and weird and odd all at the same time. These parents, along with their child right there, because the child did not want to recite the Pledge of Allegiance in school. So because of that, she was allegedly roughed up by the teacher because she refused to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And so now there is an investigation. And the parents with the child right there, the teacher has been placed on administrative leave as they look into this. But this has always been my thing. I've never understood why the Pledge of Allegiance has to be said. I still don't. I mean, I'll never forget this. 6th grade, and again, you have to go back with me for a lot of people. 40, we have to go back. We have to go back to 6th grade, and this is when I knew it hit me. 6th grade, we were getting ready to stand up, begin our day. Flag is over in the corner. We turn, we put our hand over our chest, and just as in robotic fashion, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. I stopped right there. And I was like, why am I saying this? Because I don't even believe in this. And since then, I've never said it. But you know what happened to me because I never said anymore? Nothing. When they stood up, I stood up, I turned, people put their hands on their chest, recited, me, I just waited till they were done. But a teacher never stopped me from that. A teacher never forced me to say it. And it's an interesting thing that's not the first time that's happened. We actually did cover a story last year where, again, a kid did not want to recite the Pledge of Allegiance and they tried to suspend him for it. And I never understood that idea of nationalism. It's like, if you don't believe in something, you shouldn't recite it. It's almost like a legal document. If you don't believe in what the paper says that's bounding you to do, don't sign it. Simple as that. But we're gonna follow that story even further because I think there's more to that. And again, if the teacher is found to be validated as far as them assaulting that child, then yes, their teaching license should be revoked and they should be facing criminal charges. Because why in the world do you need to put your hands on a child simply put because they don't recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I mean, don't you got better things to do? And I mean, as much as I advocate for educators, some of them just make it hard to advocate for them. But especially with dumb stuff like that. But speaking of dumb stuff, again, this is the thing that kills me. That officers, this is why I say when I say police reform is needed, because you see officers that do this kind of stuff that I'm about to show, and I'm just like, how are you still in law enforcement? Because we have another situation of a man that is struggling to breathe, but just watch the officers and how they behaved.
Dude, he's literally sitting there passing out, man. He is passing the out. Why? Because when you put your arms behind your back like that, it restricts your breathing.
Stand up, okay? Stand up.
Dude, he's black and he's pale. I can see he's pale. See, just breathe, Bubby. Breathe, Bubby.
This is Clarence Booker. Told me he was his brother. Last time I did a traffic stop right here. I'm driving through, there he is. I come and tell him that his name is Clarence. Tell me I had a warrant, he ran that way. Now I got that little red rope right there got me underneath my neck.
Yep.
So I apologize for catching the criminal.
Is he going to receive any kind of medical treatment? Yes, no, maybe so. Yeah, he's black and I can literally see him going pale, pasty. So y'all can stand there and just ignore the question, but the question still remains, and I've got all of you on camera. So if he dies in your custody, he can't breathe.
Man, I need to make out an accident for him.
Him having his hands behind his back like that restricts his breathing if he's already got issues with breathing. Just a little medical advice there. No, but I do a lot of medical research. I have a lot of medical problems. And I also have issues with my breathing. His arms being behind his back, Will. He's a big guy. God. Hi, can I get a shot of your name and your badge number real quick? You. Hello? Watch him ignore me. Not allowed to do that. Can I get your badge number, please? What's your name? Name? Name. Name? All right. If he dies, you're responsible for him. Bethany Bowman.
Yeah, actually on my place.
Yeah, I'm legal. I've never been in trouble.
Come back over here.
Bye.
This is my property. You're not allowed over here.
No, you're a cop, not a god. Bye.
Well, shout out to the person that was doing video because she stuck with him. But no, unfortunately, that man Clarence Wilkerson is the person who was identified, did die later at a hospital, local medical center. But again, it never ceases to amaze me that why did not cops call for medical assistance when it looked like, and of course, I guess you heard the bystander in the background, well, it looks like he can't breathe, he's turning pale. Why don't you guys call for medical assistance? Instead of medical assistance, they call for more cops. It becomes from 3 cops to 6 cops. And then they decide to take him out in the car and then drive him off. It makes no sense. It makes no sense that, again, we have another situation of negligence upon officers. Because again, officers can't ignore you. As much as they say, as much as they think they can, they can't. This is why I say it's very pertinent to know the laws in your city and your state. Because a lot of officers hate the fact of knowledgeable people. They depend on ignorant people, and they depend on intimidation. They figure if they got a gun in the badge and they can use a very distinct voice against you, then you're going to fold, versus knowing your laws. Just like the person recording the video knew the laws. Well, can I have your name and badge number? They can't deny that. They're public servants. He's supposed to give his name and badge number if requested. He cannot deny it or simply act like a dick just because he's been caught in a very crappy situation and he did not react accordingly. Had they did call for medical attention, had they did call for EMTs, had they did actually handcuff the man from his back to his front, it's not like he was going to run, considering the fact he was outnumbered, things would have been different. But we're going to follow that story because, again, this is why I say with police officers in the U.S. that things definitely need to change by a fracking landslide. But that being said, guys, we're going to go and move on to our feel-good segment because usually how the Frack got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes making you faith in humanity. But hey, it's the weekend. Hopefully, it's nice and calm where you are. And if you hopefully, if you're not working, if you are working, maybe a quick shift. Aside from that, guys, I love stories like this where you see people who are just trying to get into college, despite how we may feel about college now. But there's just something about getting that acceptance letter that's just a feel-good moment, which happened to this young man.
Wrong tonight, the celebration gone viral. A milestone moment that has since gone viral on social media. 17-year-old Amir Staten reacting to life-changing news. Jumping for joy after reading an email on his phone. Congratulations, you just got into Morehouse College.
I was driving and I had dropped my mom off and I got an email right when I dropped my mom off. So she's walking up to the house and I'm like, Mom, I just got an email. And she was like, open it. What are you waiting for? So I opened the email and lo and behold, it's a congratulations letter from Morehouse.
The historically black liberal arts college in Atlanta has produced famous alumni like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Spike Lee, and Samuel L. Jackson. Amir's mother, Carlin, capturing her son's joyful reaction on her cell phone.
He just flipped out. Oh, my baby.
This single mom beaming with pride.
Yeah, baby. He's such a perfectionist. The fact that he's so humble that he didn't even think he would get it. He's such an amazing kid, spiritually, intellectually. He has perfect grades. He's on every committee you can think of.
Amir getting reaction to his video from around the world. Now hoping his story will inspire other teens in his Philadelphia community and beyond.
It's also like a message to other kids in the city. You don't have to be involved in the streets to be cool. You can go to college, get a degree.
America's Wrong tonight.
Now that's cool. I can't knock it. I love to see celebrations like that. And young man, may you do well at Morehouse College because, again, I just love to see people win, especially black folks. That's just me. And I don't apologize for that. But anyway, that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. So I do thank everybody for watching, for liking, for letting me know this live. I certainly appreciate that. So shameless plug before we do get out of here, guys. I do want to shout out to my friend Big VZA Dot. I am working on a brand new graphic, so I apologize if all that's not up, but definitely check him out, Big VZA Dot, on Facebook and on YouTube with his beats page, because yes, he does make beats, and yes, they are for sale. You just have to ask nicely. But definitely check him out. Of course, guys, I am Black Fox 447 on all socials. You can find me just about everywhere. I usually do reviews on everything that I read, that I play, that I watch, and things of that nature, and gym stuff. Gonna do a couple push-ups, although I didn't go to the gym this week. Just moving to a new location, and the brother need to kind of get a little bit harder because hey, 1 year older, 1 year wiser. But Tell that to a body. I kind of needed a while after that move to recover a little bit. But best believe I'll be back in the gym very soon. Also, the link that you see at the bottom, let me make that just a little bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, it'll take you to my link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts. How the Frack got here, Get Bit, and of course, y'all on this podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. I please and thank you. Also, let me know what you think of the show. Did you like it? Did you not like it? I am open because I still want to keep the conversation and discussions going. That being said, guys, also, if you are traveling, although COVID transmission rates kind of fluctuate, but if you're going to be in an area with a lot of high traffic or just out of precaution, please wear a mask. Also, at the same time, if you are sick, please stay home because we're trying to get those vector rates down to the point to where maybe, just maybe, we can no longer say pandemic. I would like for 2023 to be the end of the pandemic, but we can't do that unless everybody comes together and does the same thing. And also, guys, and I have to say this as well, for 2023, everybody is in different lanes. We're all racing on different tracks. We're all getting to the goals, hopefully where we want to be if we do the work. If someone gets to a goal before you do, or if they get something great, or if they get an opportunity, or if they win something, congratulate them. Congratulate them. That's it. Let's not be salty. Let's not be hating. Let's not say, it must be nice, man. No, congratulate them and just be happy for them because it was their time. If you're grinding and putting in the work and taking advantage of every opportunity, your time will come too. But I would like to think when your time comes up, maybe, just maybe, you won't be, expecting people to hate on you the way you're hating on them. Bottom line, don't be a dick. Be grateful, celebrate with them, because right now we all need a win. Simple and plain. Also, speaking of tracks, again, there is no competition, but I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for all of you, especially my melanated and seasoned male people. I am rooting for all of you because I want to see everybody make it. As a good friend of mine, Demetrius Holt, said, there's plenty of room at the table to eat. You just got to make your own plate. And if you're not ready, go back to the kitchen and get ready. It's that simple. Besides that, guys, the last thing to say about how the Frack got here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind. But we are providing a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Board of Governors, electing our first black 4-star military general. All great things. And also just recently seeing a former Vietnam vet get the Medal of Honor. All great things. We don't learn from history. We are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up on my paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians in Congress, but still the same old game? And most importantly, how the Frack got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will all get through this. Also, happy birthday to me. Black Fox 504 if you want to cash out. Peace.